I hope that you are all taking care of yourselves during this holiday season. Before jumping on the mic today to record this intro, I actually was messaging with a friend of mine, and she is, talk about timing right before the new year. She's actually saying goodbye to a job that she's been at for over 20 years. And I was just messaging with her and expressing that I'm sure that there are many, many waves of big feelings coming around. And then I also just had this little twinge of just wanting to remind her. I said, as someone who's been in the unknowing for a bit, and I know it is terrifying. I can say that it is absolutely terrifying. But there is something to be said about being at the part of your story where you get to ask yourself, I wonder what happens next. I'm someone that lives by the calendar. I have had many of my years in my life planned out to a T. When you work in serialized television, you basically live by a call sheet that gets brought out every day. Everything is planned down to the day, down to the year, down to the hiatus. And it's very rare until that comes to an end that you have any sort of thought in your brain that goes, oh, I wonder what happens now. I wonder what happens next. It's all very predictable. And so it has taken me a while, especially in this past year, to get comfortable with the unpredictability of what really just is life. You can't plan everything out. You can't just put it in a Google Calendar or on your Apple Calendar, because let's be honest, I still don't understand how a Google Calendar works, and I just live by my Apple Calendar. But life will still always have curveballs for you, and then that doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. Sometimes that can actually, if you're paying attention, be something wonderful and be an opportunity that you never even imagined could happen for yourself. And I know I'm rolling my eyes at myself as I'm saying all of this, because it feels like something that would be put between this like perfectly bound book of, bright side, ideas. But just as I'm reflecting back on 2022, I'm realizing that there's something to be said about those little bright ideas and those unsuspecting opportunities. And that is so in line with what I talk about with our guest today, Kimiko Glenn. Kimiko Glenn is an American actress and Broadway performer, most notably portraying Brooke Soso in the Netflix series Orange is the New Black, for which she received 3 Ensemble Screen Actors Guild Awards. That show was so fantastic. If you never watched it, highly recommend a good binge. Kimiko is also a successful voice actress, which we talk a little bit about in this episode. And I must say, as a mother of a 6-year-old, I am very jealous of her work as Izzy Moonbow in the My Little Pony: A New Generation movie. Gosh, the mom points that would earn me. Like, those are the roles I get super jealous of. We are very big My Little Pony fans in this house. But after listening to this episode, you are going to understand why I am such a big fan of Kimiko. We also talk about traveling alone. I recorded this with Kimiko right before I was about to travel to Scotland on my own, which if you follow me on social media, you saw some of my adventures. It was a fantastic trip, which I want to do a whole episode about right after the new year. So stay tuned for that. And not everyone is a big fan of traveling by themselves. I've been a proponent of it for a very long time. I completely understand it is for some people, not for everybody. You'll hear a little bit about why Kimiko and I both enjoy traveling alone. The only kind of thing I would probably not travel alone to that we discussed today is Burning Man. And I don't know if I will ever end up at Burning Man, but golly, do I love a good Burning Man story and hearing about what inspires people to subject themselves to an event like Burning Man. But all this to say is I think what is so beautiful about my conversation with Kimiko is just her trajectory, not only through life, but through her career, is really just been this wonderful opportunity presenting itself to her that just where she just stands there and goes, oh, you know what? maybe I can do that. I absolutely, her fearlessness at which she approaches, these beautiful opportunities that life hands her is something to be inspired by. So I hope you all enjoy this fantastic interview with Kimiko Glenn. Curious as to like the whole Burning Man experience of like, what is it?
I know. I didn't honestly know what it was about either. I was just like, I feel like this is something I'm going to want to do before I die, you know? And like, I don't know. I just had like a schedule opening and everything was last minute, but I was like, I'm going to do this. And so I just, first of all, it costs, it prices people out immediately unless you get, I mean, like it's like this hippy dippy, like, let's get down and dirty, like into there. But like at the end of the day, the cheapest ticket is $500. So
is it like to just be there? It's $500, or is it like food, shelter, bathrooms?
It buys you nothing.
You
just
don't
entry.
even get like a bucket to pee in for your $500.
Yeah, yeah. You get $500, or you pay $500 to set up your tent and fend for yourself.
Wow.
But that's the cheapest ticket. Then it goes to $1,500, then $2,500 just to secure the ticket. It buys you nothing. It's pretty wild.
Had you been
I've
before?
Never been.
Okay, so this was like your first time. Like, will it be your last experience or?
No. Okay. So I want to say I had like a really crazy, not great experience, but you can't really deny the magic of Burning Man, because the reason I went was because I was like, oh, this is like this amazing art festival, essentially. And for me, that ended up being like very true. It wasn't like about, people say it's like sex, drugs, all this stuff, but it was more about enjoying the art and having the experience. And, in this city, unlike any other place, I mean, it's pretty wild. I'd recommend it. I wouldn't dissuade anyone from going, and I'd go again. But the reason it was so bad was because the conditions were crazy.
Was it hot or just windy, or it's sand, right? I mean, it's basically like Mad Max, but with like Paris Hilton as the Charlize Theron character. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. It was, so I guess like it was hotter than, I mean, it's always really hot, but it was like we were in a heat wave. And on top of that, I was supposed to get power and I didn't. For my camp, the generators were out. And then I guess there was like a monsoon a week prior, and then a massive dust storm right before. And so the playa ground was like speed bumps. So it was just like you get around by bike. And so everyone was like, go, 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 go. And it was like, I have neck issues. Like I had to go to acupuncture the day after. I was like, oh my God, like my body is wrecked. You get no sleep. You're just like sweating your ass off. But you're also kind of having the time of your life. Depending.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. My fear would be that all of those things that you just listed, like I would just be like, it's too loud. Turn the music down. And speaking of music, that it would just be like techno, EDM the whole time.
Kind of, yeah, it is.
Which is my nightmare. Yeah. And I respect anyone who loves that music. And I love that they thrive within that world. But it's just a tough one for me to live in.
Understandable. Yeah.
And then I guess I would just be like worried that I'd go and I in my head, I just see like a bunch of people rolling on Molly having orgies in front of like cool pieces of art. So I'm assuming it's not that, because I also saw Cindy Crawford with her daughter there. So I'm like, oh, it's a mother-daughter thing.
There were a lot of kids.
A lot of kids.
There are kids like amongst us. Amongst us. Yeah. I think my camp was set up next to Kidsville.
Interesting.
Which I guess is where the kids stay.
Interesting. Well, maybe that's where I'll take the kids next year for fall break.
I think they need to see a naked penis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it is funny though, because it's like we were looking at pictures of statues. I think my daughter's name is Florence, and so she's very proud of her name right now, and she is named after the city. But I also took her to see Florence and the Machine, which she thought was so cool, and she kept telling everyone like, I'm Florence too. Aww. And bought all the merch with her name on it. Yeah. But we were looking up the city of Florence, and obviously it comes with a lot of art and statues and naked statues. And so that was her. She was just like, wait, hold on. what is that? That's
what
a
are
man.
these clay lumps?
What are these? What is that? And I'm like, yeah, it's a. She's like, is that a penis? I was like, wow, you already know the vernacular. So that is
right. Kids
all
these
right.
days, they're quick.
You know, they're very quick. Who knows what they're learning on Sesame Streets? You know, I tune in, tune out half the time.
That's where they're learning it.
Yeah. Well, you would probably know better as to what kids are learning, considering that your incredible voice career as of late.
You're really good at these segues. My gosh.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. I do a lot of children's cartoons, which honestly, I didn't realize I was like super excited about, but I think it's so cool. And I love like getting the scripts every week and seeing like what kids are learning. It gives me the warm and fuzzies every week. Or twice a week or 3 times a week, I guess, because, you know, there's so much media and social media and it's like kind of scary, I'm sure, to bring a kid into, not just with social media, but with like what's going on in the world. So to get like a slice of purity in that is like really, it's grounding.
Yeah, I find a lot of children's shows to be very calming. Even just for myself. Like, I have a whole new understanding. Did you ever watch, I mean, obviously you're part of the My Little Pony world, but did you ever watch the documentary Bronies?
No.
Do
oh my
you know
God,
what
I
this
should have
is?
done that.
Oh my gosh, am I
No.
blowing your mind? Okay, get ready.
Well, I know
It is,
about bronies.
Okay.
I
Okay.
could tell. Yeah.
There is a documentary called Bronies
Oh my God.
that is fully about the brony, like, fandom.
Why did no one
culture
suggest
world.
that I watch this?
I have no idea, but it's fantastic.
Oh my gosh.
And especially if you've started to kind of go around and do any Comic-Cons or be within that circuit at all, it is, you know, there are specific cons dedicated to My Little Pony. And there was even, I think, like a Brony Con. And that's what a lot of this documentary was rooted in. But
my
it is, and so for anyone listening that's like, what the fuck is a brony? So it's men who identify as men who love My Little Pony.
Yeah.
And they are
Bros
called
who love
My Little Pony. Yeah. Bronies. And it's a lot of them. And funny enough, it's a lot of men who are suffering from PTSD. That was like the through line of like everyone that they were interviewing. It was a lot of people who were just dealing with trauma within their own lives. And there was something about My Little Pony and the colors and the world and the storylines and the storytelling that just like calmed, like they boosted their serotonin and like calmed all their anxieties in a way.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder if this started as like a Reddit thread.
Oh God, you know it did. Do you go into Reddit very often?
Absolutely
Are you Reddit gal?
Never. No. My dad tells me everything I need to know about my life. He has a Google alert on my name, I believe.
I love that. What do your parents do?
My dad's a consultant, like a software engineer. Truth be told, he's explained to me so many times what he does with all of my family members. I'm like, okay. But he, I think, programs the software for medical devices.
Okay.
He's very smart. And my mom, she's an accountant, tax preparer, CPA. And she's incredible because she does that as her main gig, but she has so many other interests. Like she took up drumming, like the drum kit, full on, like rock style, at 70.
And not even the pads, like a full kit?
I think she started on, there are pads somewhere, but she's full on now. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I don't know if my dad started her on the pads before they soundproofed anything. But yeah, she travels a lot. She's like my hero.
Oh my gosh. And then you ended up in musical theater from a young age. I mean, just the trajectory of your career is, I'm so fascinated by and jealous of extremely, because I am so jealous of anyone who has the ability to be a Broadway performer. Because it is not, you don't just like, it's like a whole other level of acting. It's a whole other level of emotional stamina. It's a whole other level of just focus and just fucking talent. So
yeah, it's not casual.
It's not casual. Yeah. And the funniest thing to me is whenever anyone who is not in the industry is like, oh, have you ever thought of like Broadway? That looks so fun and cool. And I'm like, that's a whole other.
You have no
that's
idea.
no.
Yeah.
I'm like on like a junior league, and that's like the major leagues. That is the whole other ball game.
Well, also like I did theater my whole life. 8 shows a week, my whole life. But Broadway is a different game. I mean, because you're having to rehearse understudies. I think once or twice a week. Having to do put-ins, press. Tony, like you're constantly like rehearsing for some like alternative cut of a slice of the show. I keep saying slice, piece of the show where you're going to have to perform it for, this outlet or, whatever, and wake up at 5 a.m. for that. It's just like there's so much involved that it's really intense. It's more intense than I would have imagined. But yeah, it was my dream come true. My childhood dream.
And you accomplished it pretty quickly. I mean, you left the Berkeley school. You were in
Boston
Berkeley?
Conservatory.
Boston
which
Conservatory.
Kind of next
If you
door.
can't tell, I did not go to college, so I just assume any college. I'm like Harvard and Berkeley; those are the only ones.
You went to Harvard, right?
Yeah, right. That's college.
I mean, I barely went to college either. I mean, I went for a year, so
But then you had to drop out because you had to go tour with Spring Awakening.
Yeah,
and as one does at the
that
young
was
age. Yeah,
incredibly. I don't want to say lucky because part of it is hard work and I dedicated my whole life to trying to be as good as I could be. But yeah, that was a blessing for sure.
What makes you feel that it was lucky? Because I think that I say everything that you just said, I say that all the time. I start to go like, it really was just, I was so lucky. And then I'm like, well, I know that I like put in work, but like, why I lead with lucky as well? Why do you think you lead with lucky, especially for that pivotal moment in your, young adulthood that would really kind of kick off your career?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to attribute like a majority of it to luck because a majority of it was me working hard, and practicing and being dedicated. But I was lucky in the sense that I was able to have parents who put me in Boston for an open call, that I was able to see the Broadway show prior, just like with the school I was at. We had a field trip, and the fact that like, I don't view casting as a competition because it's not really, for the most part, about who's the most talented. It's about who's the most like energetically right for the role. And like, I could have gotten there and someone could have been in a bad mood, like those sort of things where like that affects it oddly. And yeah, so those are the things that I would, I don't know if that's, those are the lucky things. But
it sounds like your parents got it they understood not only your talents but your drive and willingness to be young and put in the hours and the work, and were encouraging of your career.
Yeah, they were super supportive the whole way through. I mean, I was a crazy kid with like a lot of energy, and they were like, do you want to do theater? And I was like, yes. I had never even thought about it. And so they sort of like set me on this path, and like they would drive like hours out of their way to just get me to rehearsal or get me to, practice for this silly thing. And they were all over, and they would build sets for them and, help with the costumes. And they were very involved in a way that like, I mean, even dropping me off was a lot.
Yeah.
So I think they believed in my talent, I think, but also my personality, I think is really independent and strong. And I think they knew that I was going to get where I was going just because I was like, I'm going to do it. I set my mind to it and I'm going to do it. Yeah, I was determined. So yeah, they've always been that way. And I'm lucky that they were able to afford getting me there because gas,
Oh yeah. How old were your parents when they had you? I just only ask because I think about that all the time, especially now being in like the chapter of the 30s. I think it's like so much easier to think back to when your parents now realizing like what your parents were going through at the age that you are. Yeah.
My mom was 39 when I was born.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I think like 36 or 37 when she had my sister.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Great.
I did the math wrong for a second and I was like, 49? Like, that's impossible.
She's like Janet Jackson.
Impeccable health.
Yeah.
Back in the late 80s. Wow. Yeah.
That's amazing. So they were like ready to put in those driving hours. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the best when you can look back and see that it wasn't just what you saw in yourself, but just how beautiful it is when your parents see that within you, even at a young age.
I can't imagine having parents that aren't supportive. I mean, yeah, I like, it was just so easy for me to pursue my dreams, you know, and do what I wanted to do. And, you know, we weren't like rich or something, like they weren't like paying to, you know, some people have it really good, but you know, just the mere fact that I was able to go and they were there for me and they were like, hey, you should pursue this, and full support was pretty awesome. Because I also did go to a boarding school, like an arts boarding school my senior year, which they had to pay for.
Yeah.
So they like full on like had like, if they didn't support me or, you know, believe in me, then that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Thanks, parents.
Yeah, parents are pretty cool sometimes. Yeah. They know a lot of things. I'm starting to realize When you were off the tour, when did you start transitioning more into film and television, or were you auditioning the whole time for that? Like, I mean, it sounded like from a young age, you know, musical theater or theater in general was, you know, an end game of sorts. When did that start to change for you?
Okay. So I didn't even think about TV and film as a possibility. Like, to me, I was like, oh, they're actors. I mean, that's the dumbest representation of myself, but like, I just didn't view them the same way. I was like Broadway, and like tunnel vision about it. And just like, I do singing, I do acting. I like want to be on stage and, you know, I want to be a starving artist in New York and make it. And I don't know, whatever. I just had this image of myself. And then I got an audition for a TV show and I was like, wait, I can do this too? Like alongside? And they were like, yeah, that's what being an actor is. And so I was like, okay. And so I auditioned for this thing and I ended up, they wanted to test me for it. And it was like the first thing I auditioned for. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so great. Just kidding. No, but I was
nailed it.
I was encouraged by that, you know, and the feedback I was getting from the auditions I was going to. I was like, logistically, I was in Canada and I wasn't able to make it that quickly. So it ended up not like, I ended up not going. But like, I think those moments just were very affirming for me. And I sort of was not even sure if I wanted to pursue acting for a while. And sort of like I go in and out of that too.
Why not?
It's just, you know, as a career, it's different than when you do it for fun, you know, and I love the collaborative nature of it and the community and the energy behind it. But once money is involved, like it can still be great or it can be kind of hellish, either in TV and film or theater. It gets really high stakes and that sort of pressure is intense, you know? So I was not sure, but then towards the end of the tour, I reached out to some agents that I had met and I was like, do you want to represent me? And they're like, yes, we're still interested. And I was like, oh, thank God. Because I had met them like a year prior and I hadn't followed up. But yeah, I went to New York and then they just were submitting me for things. And I actually didn't do a lot in TV and film until Orange is the New Black. Things here, there, I did a pilot that didn't go and stuff like that. But yeah, Orange is the New Black was my first like steady on set experience. And that was like being thrust into not the lion's den, because that sounds like it was like a crazy, like a mean group of people or something like, but it was already a pop culture phenomenon. It was
and
already
a group of people
Yeah.
who have spent a lot of time, a
Together, yeah.
lot of not only time together, but independently from each other, had put in a lot of hours in specifically like TV or film, basically on camera acting,
Yeah.
which is a whole different
Yeah.
ball game, is what I'm told from anyone who experiences both versions.
Yeah. It's a bit of a switch. I remember going from Orange to Waitress, which was the Broadway show I did, and I was in rehearsals like, is this big enough? Am I big enough? Like I couldn't remember what it felt like to just be like on stage and like playing for, thousands of people. I eventually got in a bit of a groove, but yeah, it is kind of like a mental, physical switch. And just like in terms of technical stuff, stuff is more so like the focus that you need to have in order to be on a set, and like the terms and like and how things are run, the etiquette. It's all very different. But I find it fun. But I have to say the thing that really had me switch over to TV and film was like the paycheck. And the lifestyle. I was like, oh, I can do other things while I do this and get paid exponentially more than, because until you get to Broadway, it's not a well-paying gig to do theater, especially in New York, you have to pay rent. So it's really stressful.
In New York. Yeah, exactly. New York rent in itself is stressful.
Yeah.
And just the schedule of a Broadway performance is
you can't do anything else.
No.
Yeah.
No, that is a whole other level of being at your A game. I mean, you can come to work and on a TV show and you need to be on your A game, but look, you can have a rough night of sleep if you're not and be okay. You know, you can have a second take. That's always I think the biggest difference. But did you enjoy your time on Orange is the New Black? What was when you booked that, was there this anticipation of like, yay, and then oh shit, like what is
exactly? I mean, because I had literally been watching Orange is the New Black when I got the audition. Like I was in the middle of watching an episode and I got the audition and I was like, this is tripping me out. And I was like, there's no way this is going to happen, but I'm going to give it my all and I'm going to try and see how it goes. And I think by some twist of fate, Genji was in the audience of the show I was doing. I was doing Shakespeare in the Park at the time. And I was some like side character, but she was funny and she had seen me in it. And I think she liked me, I imagine, because she cast me. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot of pressure. I have to say, I mean, like, I'm someone who lives with really intense anxiety, at least at that point in my life, because I'm, I've sort of figured it out a little bit more. And I will always have anxiety. Like, it'll never be just like solved. But to enter into a TV scenario. I mean, I'd never done TV like on that level. And with all these people that I had seen out, on the billboards and, in the subway ads and everything and on my laptop and everything, and to just be there. Also, fun fact, everyone's in a jumpsuit. So everyone looks like everyone looks the same. So like I would be sitting in the first team hallway and people would pass me and not know who the hell I was because like there's no defining factor really.
Yeah, that's really funny.
So for months, people thought I was an extra or like a background actor just sitting in the first team hallway. And I was like, no, I'm that character that's in the script named Brooke. And they're like, oh, you're Brooke. Okay. Because I was also very shy. I didn't want to like disrupt anyone or anything. I didn't want to be like, I'm a big fan. Love your work.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I remember one of my favorite lessons I learned very quickly after also being told many times in the first season of the show that I worked on for a long time, that I was the greenest of the bunch. So I had never, this was my first pilot. This was my first almost everything. So I didn't understand any of the TV lingo or any of the acting, even the acting lingo was still very new to me.
Yeah.
But I remember our kind of like supervising director, and finally towards, the middle of the season, like pulled me aside and he was like, Candice, if I'm not talking to you, you're doing a good job. You don't have to ask me every time if you're doing a good job. And I was like, okay. So then I just was like, this is good. If I can just sit here and no one looks at me and no one talks to me, and I'm doing a great job. And it is, so yes, I'm usually I like to kind of like hide off in the corner as well.
Yeah.
And be like,
gosh. I know the struggle though, if no one's saying anything. I'm like, oh my God. They're recasting right now.
I know right now, but now I'm the opposite. Now I'm like, if they talk to me, I'm like, oh, well, now they're upset. They're not happy with it. It's all over. It's funny the habits you learn on a long running show, and how you can easily carry them into other things. That's so many different. What a large ensemble cast, and with such just in very big, heavy weighted storylines as well. How far in advance would you guys know what was going to happen next? Were you kind of anticipating certain storylines based off of what was going on?
Definitely not.
And no, it was just constantly thrown at you.
Script by script. And it was hard because you didn't know what your trajectory was. You didn't know what you were headed towards. For me, so I don't know if I can like speak on this because like if people, at this point it's like there are no spoilers. It's out there, and if you haven't watched it, get into it. But like for my character, she, has there's a point I think in third season where she is like getting bullied a lot, and I'm like, either she's really just I'm getting a tough skin and I'm dealing with this, or she's like gonna kill herself. And I sort of was like, well, no one's telling me anything, so I'm just gonna have a tough skin. And then after I decided that, the producer pulled me aside and she was like, your character's gonna commit suicide, like attempt suicide the next episode, right? I was like, yeah, I didn't know that. That's good to know. Wow.
You're like, no, like, I put that deep into the character study. Like it was a deep layer.
I'm suppressing that. Yeah, big time. Yeah, no one can know. I'm just like folding it in lightly. But yeah, there were so many things we didn't know. Like about Samira's storyline. Like that was one of those things where I read the episode and finished it at 1 a.m. And my boyfriend at the time was sleeping on the couch, and I was like, dude. I was like, and he's like, what? And I was like, I can't tell you. Oh my God. Well, I was like so shocked, and I couldn't like text people because it was 1 a.m. And then the next day I was like, did you know? And they were like, no, I had no idea. And we didn't know much, which was an interesting journey.
What is your relationship like with fans of the show? What is something you hear often? Do people come up and share really personal stories with you? I feel like that show covered so many topics like suicide or just even incarceration in general. Do you find people coming up and sharing really personal life stories with you based on the show?
I want to say like I get more of that online. People will DM me or something, or message or what do you call it? Comment.
Mm-hmm.
But the relationship with the fans throughout the years has been so varied. I know at the start, because it was such a big fanatical thing, like people, and living in New York, people would kind of be disrespectful because they were so thrown off that they were seeing someone that they probably just saw on their computer screen or their TV screen, that they would just like run up and grab you or like scream or just like steal a picture very clearly, like in front of you. And like it was this kind of paranoia inducing experience for me because I really love to be anonymous. And I didn't get into acting to be famous. I just like loved doing it. And it felt like a great outlet for me. And so that was something to really contend with and get over or like, process. But also, it varied season by season because my character was annoying for the first season. So I got a lot of like, fuck you, da 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 da, like, you're so annoying, like really hateful comments online for the first year. And then it turned into protect her at all costs. Everyone, like, people thought I was annoying as a person.
Yes.
And then they were like, oh, you're so great as a person. They like attach it to you as a human being. And I'm like, I'm not Brooke, and eventually the fanatical aspect died down and people are way more respectful and are far more able to look at me and go like, I know you from somewhere, or just like, I love you and this is why. But like, people didn't have a clear head while it was happening. If like it didn't seem like anyone was had any chill while it was happening.
I'm trying to think how many other shows had really just been dropping like that. You know what I mean? Where you just get the whole season all at once to consume. And I feel like that was in the early days of that.
It was the first of its kind. I mean, like, aside from House of Cards, it was the second show on Netflix.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So, and there were far less shows in general. Like, we are like oversaturated. There are so many platforms. There's so much content now, and things get swallowed. And it's amazing if something pops. But back then, it was like these were the shows you watch, and so there were a lot of eyes on them. So it's different now, and I'm thankful for that because I like to be left alone. Not even left alone, just treated with dignity and respect.
Just like a member of the world. Yeah, a human in the world.
Yeah.
Well, if I would have run into you in New York, I would have fangirled all over you because of your episode of Broad City. I love that show, and I love reselling clothes. There's too many clothes in the world. It's like I have to go through that process recently, before. Yes, I love a good resell. It's more just like keeping the clothes in the universe, not just like throwing them away and adding to the trash piles. But I always think of the character that you played in that episode who's just like disgusted at everything because it is so accurate. Yeah, and you did it so well, and it always makes me laugh. And if anyone has not seen Broad City, go watch it, and you will know exactly what episode I'm talking about.
I'm really not the best at playing deadpan, and so that was a really big challenge for me, especially when you have like Alana Glazer and Abby like just playing and saying all this ridiculous stuff in front of you, and I'm just supposed to like have dead eyes and just look at them, and I was dying. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best ever, and they're lovely people, and I was such a fan of Broad City, so like giddy to be on the show that I was like, I can't believe I'm able to keep a straight face right now.
Oh my gosh, it was too good because it's so accurate. It's so true. Every time you go, it's like you're like, I'm so sorry to interrupt you with my suitcase of clothes. And yes, that one has the tag on. It is disgusting. Throw it back in my face. I'm so sorry I subjected you to that sweater.
I know. I'm like, you see the price on there. It's brand new. And you're seriously offering me $5? How dare you? Traumatizing.
Was it nice to get back to Broadway after television for so long? Were you done? Were you ready to be done with the show? As someone who I only have really come from TV, that is like, that's my safe space. It's uncomfortable for me to do anything else is like me out of my comfort zone. So like the rhythm of like a TV show is like my lane. Like I drive very well in that lane. And when I'm in anything else, it's like I'm driving in the UK and I'm like, no, I know how to do it. It's just everything feels a little backwards.
Yeah.
Were you happy to get back to theater, or were you kind of sad to say goodbye to the character, or all the things?
Well, I had always planned on doing double duty. So I had Orange like kind of written into my contract when I did Waitress. So because Orange shoots in New York, so I was gonna wake up at 6 a.m. and do my thing and then go to the show at night and figure it out. And I know Danielle Brooks was doing the same thing. Well, she was doing Color Purple at the time. And so It wasn't I was saying goodbye to Brooke. I was just saying hello again to my like first love. And so it was really refreshing because I love singing. It's like that is how I started this whole thing was I was a singer and that's how I expressed myself. And for me, singing is so like mathematical and like you can feel when it's in the pocket and you can feel when it's like really good because it feels really good coming out. And so I was so happy to be doing that every night and surprising anyone who had no idea that I sang because they knew me as Brooke. But that was like my first love and like the way I got into it all. I was like obsessed with imitating singers. And so that's yeah, I was really excited and it really felt like my comfort zone once the show started.
I read in an interview that one of the singers you used to imitate was Celine Dion.
Yes. I love Celine. She's so good. I was just in New York and I was like, I need to see Titanic. I need to see it.
I want to see that so bad.
I
and
know.
It's basically like it's all the music of Celine Dion put to the presentation of like the Titanic movie, correct?
Yeah, something like that. And Marla Mandel stars in it and she's so funny. But you know, I love anything Celine related because she's such an amazing singer, but she's also like just the most unique showman.
Yeah.
Like I saw her in Vegas and she like went on a 45-minute monologue about nothing. I don't remember what it was about. She was just talking and I was like, we were all just like looking at her like, we love you, Celine. And then she was like, they're telling me to wrap it up. They're telling me to wrap it up. And I was like, you should probably wrap it up. We want to hear you sing. Hearing her voice in surround sound, man. Oof. That's everything.
Yeah. Oh man. I know. I that was one of my first concerts I went to.
Yeah. Same.
Was oh God, what's the name of that? It was like it was one of her albums where she had her short hair and she's in like the white t-shirt and jeans with the white background.
It Falling Into You?
Yes, thank you.
I know it well. That was my first album.
Oh yeah, it's a solid one. It is full of hits. But I have not seen her in these recent years, and so I'm hoping
she's still great.
I know.
She's still killing it. I mean, you know when people get older and their voice starts to warble?
Yeah.
She's not that way.
Yeah, which is like incredible.
She really puts her all into her craft, into her instrument. I mean, the saline mask. Have you seen that doc?
No.
Yeah. It's really intense, but she's amazing.
Well, so there's a Celine Dion documentary that's really.
It was back in the day. It was. I don't know if it's. It must be a. Yeah, there was a Celine Dion documentary. I can't tell you what it's called. But
I will definitely find it because I love a good doc. And you can watch Bronies and then I'll go watch Celine Dion.
We've given each other homework.
Yes,
I'm so
we have
happy.
Homework. Well, obviously you were part of the collective global experience of 2020 and all of that and what that has became and what it was to especially the Broadway community. What I feel like by the time you were back on stage and obviously when did you move back to LA or when did you move to LA from New York? What was your trajectory after the show back being on stage?
I moved to LA officially in 2019 and I had been meaning to for like 5 years, maybe 4. But then I got Waitress and I couldn't. It kept me there. So I honestly, for me, the reason I left was because I couldn't handle the New York lifestyle anymore. It was just felt like it was dragging me down. And I knew like, because I had been bi-coastal for a while, I was like, oh, there's sunshine year round. And like, you know, you get more bang for your buck, you know, square footage wise and nature's at your fingertips and all this stuff. And it just felt like the LA lifestyle was more for me, but I was so grateful that I moved here before the pandemic because I couldn't imagine being in New York and having to go to a grocery store in 2020.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't go to a grocery store before 2020 in New York. Like it's stressful. It's so tight quarters and it's scary, fluorescent lighting, and it's just not ideal. So I was really thinking of my New York friends at the time. I'm like, come to LA, get in a hazmat suit and come to LA. Drive if you have to. But yeah, I couldn't imagine being a part of that community and having that be my main source of income. It really affected people, and I think a lot of people left the city and reevaluated, which honestly I think was a good thing for a lot of people. I think the lifestyle and mental aspect of having to contend with this virus was, I don't know, ended up being like a big moment of growth, I think, for everyone. Hopefully. I don't know, because you're forced to look at, yourself in the situation and how you've been living and like what's sustainable. Because we're all just like on this a bit of a hamster wheel, trying to get ahead and trying to make ends meet and trying to make our lives look really good on social media and all this stuff. But like, it really put into perspective what's actually important. And I think for people that was like relationships and the people that they have in their lives and leaning into that. And I think we needed that reminder,
Especially isn't in the arts or entertainment industry. So much of that is optics, and the reality is rooted in, the reality starts with just a lot of dreams and opportunities that you hope you're in the right room at the right time with the right skill set to be able to take advantage of. But then you get a little bit older and, going back to what we were talking about earlier, you realize, oh, I need to make a paycheck, even what you were saying earlier, that filming on a TV show definitely pays better than, busting your ass Broadway, 8 shows a week. Is it generally 8 shows to get the number right? Yeah. Which is insane. It's a lot. And at the end of the day, you realize, oh, I do need to pay bills, and I actually do want a retirement fund. And if and I want to be able to go to Burning Man, maybe I do want to go to Burning Man and upgrade my campsite a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I was so grateful that I started a career in voiceover, because it sort of provides, like, first of all, it's so creative and fun. But also like the passive income of having residuals, because these shows play often, is such a blessing, because I want to be a mother one day. And to just also know that I'm able to work still, being pregnant, having a kid, like I can still record. And that's like such an incredible, like, and that sort of, I was doing voiceover before, but I really leaned into it during the pandemic. And I'm glad I did, because I have these goals in my life, and I don't know if I would have leaned as hard into it or given it as much weight as I did if we weren't forced to, But yeah, it's the pandemic really put a lot of things into perspective.
Yeah. No, I feel like I was walking that line. I had kids. I started my first I had at 28. And then I have a almost 2-year-old now. And it's been an interesting, which is, they're real fun. They're super fun. They know things about, like, they know what a penis is on a statue. Kids are great.
You taught them
they're
well.
A riot. Yeah, I'm teaching them well.
The important things.
The important things, art and in architecture, but in history, but it is, when you get to a point where you're like, oh, I do want kids and I want to make a living, but I also want to be able to raise my kids. It changes kind of the scope of what you feel like or what I feel like I'm able to do sometimes in the business comparatively to if I was only focused on like leaning into just the job, just the work, just the next gig. And I think that people forget that if they're not in the industry and they just see you as someone who works on a show. And they're like, oh, you're on that show. Well, what are you doing right now? Well, what are you doing next? It's like, well, you may not see it, but I'm actually building really important, the foundation of like what I want to do next, which is also like maybe have a family, maybe, live in my own house and not have to travel constantly for work for a little while. And I'm assuming that like what a gift. And it's really hard to break into voiceover work. For anyone that doesn't know,
Years.
it's very difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many people would listen, like hear me speak just in a conversation and be like, you should do voiceover. I'm like, I know. I literally would be sending in like 3 or 4 auditions like a day. I mean, that's exaggerating, but you know, like it was a lot of auditions that I sent in and no bites until I think Orange is the New Black. And then BoJack Horseman called because it was Netflix. And they're like, do you want to play this mouse on BoJack Horseman? And I was like, yes. And like things started kind of rolling. I think because people maybe in the voiceover industry saw the show and were like, whoa, that's an interesting voice. But yeah, I think, you know, like people started like putting their energy into hobbies and you know things outside of what's going to make them money. And I think this moment in time also with like the climate stuff and everything going on, when people ask me like, so what are you working on, I don't ask people that anymore. I actually never did, because that to me isn't what's important. I just like ask, you know, how they are.
Yeah.
But but like for me, I would always get a little embarrassed if I was just like not working on something really cool. And for me, right now, I'm completely in the mindset of like, my goal right now is to live, you know, because there's only so much we can do about this moving train towards death. You know, like I mean, just in like human nature, but like also like the earth being on fire and all that stuff. It's just so bleak. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna lean into friendships. I'm gonna lean into like my little animal family that I have. I'm gonna like try and travel and see the world as much as I can. And, you know, and of course I'm so privileged to say that. But I'm trying to like just make memories, because at the end of the day, that's what life is about, is like living, you know, and pushing yourself and challenging yourself and going to Europe on your own. You know, I never would have done that before.
Where did you go?
All over. I went to, well, I started in London and stayed with a friend, and then I departed from her, and then I went to Nice, France, and then I went to Cinque Terre. And I said a Cinque Terre. Cinque Terre. I don't know. People call it.
No, you got it the first time.
Okay, thank you. And then I went through Florence, which was busier than I would have liked, but the architecture, I mean, amazing. And then stayed in Siena, drove around Tuscany, and then went to Venice, which was
all on your own?
All on my own, yeah. And it was so liberating. I didn't realize this is why people encourage, you know, people to go on their own, because traveling alone is the shit.
I leave Sunday for a solo travel
trip. Oh my gosh, where are you going?
Scotland.
Oh, fun. I want to go there next.
Yes. I will report back how it is. Yeah, I too will be driving. That is very much it's the UK. Yeah. So that's going to be but legally I'm allowed to do it.
Yeah,
you know?
Which I don't understand.
If I'm legally allowed to do it, it's cool. I must be capable.
It'll be fine, obviously.
If the government trusts me, I can trust myself.
When I was in London, I was in the back of cabs and I was like, can I do this? And I would be like, it's green, go. And I'd be like, oh no, it's not. That's the wrong. Oh my God. I would not be able to do this.
Yeah, I'm going to get like a Pinterest cheat sheet of like how to drive.
Yeah. And it's just one big sign that says, get used to it.
Yeah. Exactly. It sounds like you've really fared well for yourself, just leaning into yes. And that has kind of been such a theme of your life. Even beyond Burning Man. What is something what is something that you're looking forward to leaning into, besides just you've done your solo travel? It's just really your own experiences. If someone is apprehensive to saying yes because they're just scared of the outcome right now, as someone who's really practiced it well recently, what would you say to them?
I mean, if you want to do it, go for it. There are so many things. So I grew up really like risk averse and going through all the things that could go wrong and all the reasons why I shouldn't. And it was a fearful way of thinking. And once like it took many, many years of training myself out of this. But once I started opening up my world and saying yes to things and just going for it, you realize you can and that you figure it out. No matter what, because you have to when you throw yourself into an unfamiliar situation, which I think is why people grow exponentially when they leave their hometown or like, I'm always encouraging people to get a dog because it changes your life in such a beautiful way. And like, for the most part, people don't regret it. And I'm like, there's never a good time. Just do it.
That's what I tell people about having babies.
Yeah,
I'm like, there's never a good time.
I mean, because at the end of the day, you're going to have them for like 18 plus years, So what do you mean timing it out right now? I mean, of course, like if you're not financially capable, it's like maybe hold off. Like,
I always say there's better times than others, but there's generally no like perfect time.
Yeah, nothing's ever going to align perfectly, and if it does, good for you.
Yeah.
Life is crazy, and it throws the most random stuff at you, and the way you deal with it, and the way you handle it, and the way you persevere and move forward is what helps you become the person that you're meant to be. And I think part of growing as an individual is knowing when to say yes and also when to say no, and to really know what's important to you and what's not, and what you value and what you don't. And if you're interested in something and you're holding yourself back for whatever silly reason, go for it. Why not? Life is a journey.
Life is a journey. I want to watch that My Little Pony episode. Everything that you just said could be its own perfect episode. And then the bronies would go nuts. And then I can watch with my kids and it'll be like the perfect circle experience.
Yes. Tell Hasbro.
Perfect. I'm going to pitch it tomorrow. Well, I always like to do a little conversation cool down with all my guests and ask them 5 things.
Oh.
So first is, what is something that you know?
Oh my goodness. Something that I know. That's a big question.
I know. And it can be anything. Like, I know that it is officially stink bug season because I've had to vacuum like 8 of them this morning. So
I know that I, at some point, have to clean my studio from all the Burning Man stuff that's just been sitting in there for.
Now, is it like a costume or did you build art?
No, I didn't. I can't say that for myself. I just have my shift pod, which is like this massive tent.
Okay.
I have like my e-bike. I just have things stacked in there. And it's not a good look anytime I go into a professional setting, which is like every time I'm on a Zoom. So
all your Burning Man gear.
Yeah. I need to clean it up.
Okay. What is something that you like?
Oh, something that I like. Oh my goodness. It's so cliche, but I like animals. I mean, I love animals. But I just got this kitten. He's walking around. I'm totally obsessed with, and more than like this kitten, I'm in love with this kitten. I'm obsessed with this kitten. And I found him on the street actually a month ago. He was just like this 10-week-old malnourished ball of fluff. And I was like, how is this kitten just out on the street? And so my neighbors caught him. I like gave him a crate because he was next to the neighbor's house. I gave them a crate and I was like, put some food in here. If you catch him, bring him to my house. And so they did. And I was going to, bring him to a shelter, but he just claimed me. And I'm liking the kittenhood. And the process of like designing his little cat wall, which I'm definitely building right now, which is a whole endeavor. I also got him a cat wheel. And don't ask me what that is. Just kidding. It's a hamster wheel for cats.
Okay, perfect. That's exactly what I pictured in my mind, but I'm glad that you confirmed that.
Yeah, so I'm liking that.
Okay, what is something that you hate?
I try not to hate things, but
We all do.
you
We all
know,
try not to hate things.
I hate when people don't communicate. This year has been full of like miscommunications and avoidance, and I'm a big communicator. And so I'm always like, I can be brutally honest and in a way that's like, I shouldn't be like, so like I'm blunt sometimes. And I think it sometimes can be off putting, but I would so much rather have someone give that back to me and be frank and tell me the truth than to have people like just avoid a conversation and prolong something for like months. That's happened like a lot, oddly.
Yeah.
Like professionally, personally, like it's just kind of like the theme of this year. So I'm like, just communicate.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I know. I think we're all kind of getting our sea legs back a little bit from, sheltering in place and being like, how do we operate around people in the global sphere? But yeah, that is definitely a big one. Okay. What is something that you love?
I just said something I love. Shoot, I should have saved
that was something you
it.
like. What's something that you like love?
Oh god,
that's like not family. I know
that's hard because my cat is jumping from seat to seat and it's so freaking cute.
It can be your cat again. That's totally fine. There's no rules in this cool down.
I love the little life I've built in LA. Because
what is it?
I love the little life I've built here in LA. Because it's, I don't know, I'm proud of myself. I worked really hard and I was able to buy a home and renovate it. And I feel like so privileged that I was able to do that. And I did it before the pandemic. So it was before things got really unmanageable. And before the housing market went, whee. But I feel like I'm so proud of it. And I'm so proud of myself for doing it because I did it all on my own. And it wasn't, with a partner. It wasn't relying on anyone else. It was just purely me. And so that's something I feel really happy about.
And you fucking should. That is a great feeling. So, and congratulations, truly. Truly. And then a quirky little fact about you.
Quirky little fact. I feel like there are so many.
Besides your collection of cat wheels.
I know. That's like a pretty quirky fact. Quirky fact. I'm amazing. I'm a perfect individual. No, I mean, gosh, that one's hard. Quirky fact. And it's not that quirky because I feel like everyone's in the same boat, but I love reality TV.
No, that's great.
I am a terrible actor. I watch hardly any scripted. I mostly watch either documentaries or really crappy reality TV. Like all of it.
Well, I respect that.
Thank you.
I do too. It is the massage my brain needs at the end of a long day.
And also I view it like a study of human nature, you know, oh, my cat just fell. Just like I think observing people is so interesting because like also in scripted shows I feel like people are so like even if they're out of control they're still so in control because it's a performance, so it's fun to watch people completely lose their mind on television and just forget the cameras are there and just remember that exists. Yeah, it's fun.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, so it's really an acting exercise and doing my homework every night, just reminding myself how humans operate.
Well, I think as a human, you operate with such light and positivity, and that is what I'm going to study from this conversation. And Kimiko, it really is so nice to meet you. And thank you so much for hanging on the Super Bloom podcast today.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Thanks. A Super Bloom podcast is hosted by me, Candice King, produced by Melissa D. Montz and Diamond Imprint Productions, edited by Diane Kang, post-production sound by Coco Lawrence, and advertising partnership with Acast.